Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson, and I was chuckling because I almost forgot to open this and put myself on the screen after the beginning of the show. So you know, hey, welcome to live TV, everybody. Nobody's perfect, right? So we want everybody in the Invisible Condition community. We want all of you, everybody, within Invisible Condition, to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you do have a voice, you have a community, and you are absolutely not alone. And to that end, I have a great guest today. I'm pretty excited for you to meet him. Chris Pratt leads an effort to rally together a community that wants to fight chronic illness naturally. Catch that last word, because that's the important one, naturally. He is instrumental in giving hope to people who have had their health stolen, I'll say, by poor nutrition and lifestyle, but are reclaiming it through God's original plan of health for health. And I love that, because God does have a plan for your health, and it's not always what is out there. So Chris works with individuals and families who not only want to reverse chronic health problems, but also those who want to be preventative to ensure their health is actually going to last and has longevity. So Chris is a certified functional nutritionist, YouTuber, natural health educator, and founder of the Plant Adventure, which we will talk about. And just recently is getting ready to kick off a new podcast called The Healing Conspiracy, which I don't think is official yet, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So bring them on the screen. We bring them on here, and we'll see what we can come up with here. Hey, Chris, how's it going, man? Thank you for being here.
Good, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. This is great. This is cool stuff, because I love talking to people that understand that your body is meant to heal itself, right? You're not meant to, like, what's my favorite thing that I can't even remember who I heard this from. Somewhere a couple years ago, somebody said, look, you're not depressed because you have a Zoloft deficiency in your system. That's not the problem.
Right.
It's there's not like a Zoloft shaped hole in your body somewhere.
Exactly.
Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Right. That's let's talk about Hippocrates. Right.
Right.
So people gotten away from that. So I'm glad you're bringing it back around. So it wasn't really mentioned in your bio, but when we were getting ready for this show, you mentioned a diagnosis that you live with. Can you just share a little bit about what's going on there and how it's impacting you?
Sure. So in 2019, I had skin cancer, and it was, kind of your standard run of the mill skin cancer, if you will, except that unfortunately I was in denial about it. I didn't really want to deal with it. And so in my mind, I'm like, it's probably nothing. It'll go away. It'll reverse, whatever. It did not. And it began to spread fairly quickly. And so I had to have surgery. So I had the traditional Mohs surgery, which is what they do for most basal cell carcinoma. So there's 3 kinds of skin cancer, right? Basal cell, squamous, and melanoma.
Okay.
And basal cell is like the top layer. So mine was basal cell, which is the most common. And, but unfortunately, it can spread very deeply. And that's what mine had done.
Mm.
So it was a fairly extensive surgery, multiple surgeries actually. And, but after that, although it was fairly traumatic and I didn't enjoy it, but it was kind of like, hey, we're done with this. We'll go back to life as it is. Now let me kind of back up because I'm kind of skimming over a lot of details, of course, but in the 2-month process of the surgery, because I had one over my eyebrow and I had one behind my ear.
Okay.
So the one over my eyebrow, it was not terribly big, and they were able to sort of repair it in office, if you will.
Sure.
So I don't know if the viewers are familiar with Mohs surgery, but for the most part with Mohs surgery, what happens is they just go in and they cut out layer by layer of your skin until under a microscope, they see no more abnormalities, right? So it seems like a simple process, except that you're very much aware of all of this. It's not under anesthesia, like they deaden, it's local. Yeah. And so like you can't feel it per se. But
so it's like a local. They like numb you up and stuff. They don't
exactly.
just go to town, right? Okay.
Right,
good.
right. Yeah. So I was injected many times with
Yeah.
needles all over my face.
Oh.
And that was the best part, actually. It only got worse from there.
Yeah.
But what happens is they go in and they take off a layer of skin, and then you have to get bandaged up and go wait in the waiting room. And so you're in the waiting room with a whole bunch of people, most of them elderly, and you're sitting there kind of waiting, like, am I done? And they have to go check it out under a microscope, and if they see even one bit of tissue that looks abnormal, they go in and they scrape off the next layer and the next layer. So with my eyebrow, I had to go like 3 different times within the day.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. Like, it was extensive, but it was thankfully not too deep that they were able to take like a skin graft right here off of my collarbone area and graft over the skin and replace it, because obviously they take off too much skin to just stitch it up, so had a skin graft. And then a month later, they were going to tackle behind my ear. Now the one behind my ear was much a larger surface area. And I think it's worth pausing for a minute, because it's strange that the skin cancer that I had was behind my ear. It's a very unusual location, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of where my brain started kicking into gear, right? Because I'm a pasty white guy. I get it. I've been sunburned, and so your lot in life is you have to get skin cancer. That's what they tell you. And it just wasn't settling with me for that very reason, that like, it's behind my ear. And the answer that they gave me was even less understandable. The answer, because I asked, I'm like, oh, I've never been sunburned behind my ear. Like, I'd have to walk around folding my ear back.
Right.
Like, what in the world? And they said, well, it just has the ability to travel where it wants. And I'm like,
that's like the worst non-answer I've ever.
Exactly. And so I'm like, and so you're trying to be respectful and you're like, okay, sir, that makes no sense. But, and it was really interesting. So it was in that time, just before I started having these surgeries, because I had been dealing with the issue for a couple of years. And well, actually probably more than that, but it really began to spread within about a year. And in that time, I did start to do some research because I assumed it was probably skin cancer. And I began to realize that there is very little hard, undeniable evidence that the sun causes cancer, but there's a whole lot of evidence that sunscreen causes cancer. And there's a whole lot of evidence that poor nutrition causes cancer.
Yes.
Or at least contributes to the growth of cancer. Because, I think a mistake that people make is that, cancer is like this thing and it jumped on me and like, now I have cancer. No, cancer is your body's response to abnormal cells. And what happens is when your immune system is oppressed and it cannot function properly, it doesn't recognize this cellular, abnormality.
So what happened? So I've heard, maybe you can dispel this for us. I've heard that like the cells are already in your body, and you have to it's like it's activated with something you do or something that happens
Yeah.
external or some sort of, like I've heard that with a lot of things like alcoholism. Some people just have the
Mhm.
gene or
Yeah.
have the propensity for
Yeah.
it or whatever, and it doesn't get activated until you take the first drink or you do,
Yeah.
and so is it that's what I've kind of heard about cancer cells, is that everybody already has some in their body. But then it's kind of your fault from activating them or
Well,
something.
I would say yes, cautiously. Yes and no,
Okay.
but
Okay.
cautiously. But okay, what you're talking about is epigenetics, right? And it's the
Right.
idea that our cells can be turned off and on based on the environment. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that definitely plays. There are, see, a lot of people think that cancer is just hereditary, it runs in my family. Well, what actually runs in your family is lifestyle.
Yes.
And so the way
Yeah.
you eat is probably the way your parents ate, and it's probably the way your grandparents ate, and so on. And I think it's something very small, like 5 to 7% of cancer is actually genetic. There's only like 5 to 7% of them that are
If
genetic.
that. Yeah.
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 So it does have a lot to do with environment and epigenetics. And it's very interesting because you could have two people in the same environment, if you will, and one gets cancer and one doesn't. But you're right, it's an expression of your genes. But the truth is this: every single person has cancer cells in their body every day
Hmm.
because it's just a cell that's not functioning properly. It's damaged somehow. And when your immune system is healthy, it scavenges, it finds those cells and it removes them from your body. But when your immune system is not healthy, it doesn't recognize the problem and it begins to grow. And the tumor actually becomes, in a way, a protection for your body
Hmm.
because they're all accumulating in the same place.
It encapsulates it.
And
Yeah.
encapsulates it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why whenever you have biopsies and surgeries, scary things happen because you're literally breaking the seal that the body
You're like
created.
hitting the hornet's nest.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So nevertheless,
Oh,
so yeah, I mean, that is right. And so, I started studying all this and I found, in the world of epigenetics, like the foods we eat, the environment, the air we breathe, the water we drink, all of this can trigger and harm our systems. Okay.
yes.
Really, cancer, in my opinion, is a malfunction of the immune system because the immune system's not working properly. Otherwise, this wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
Now, why is the immune system not working properly? There could be 100 reasons, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I did enough research to kind of not accept the idea that you got a sunburn. This is the problem, and for me, like I very much, I adhere to biblical teachings. I have a biblical worldview. Like I very strongly believe that the Bible is the foundation of truth. And it was hard for me to grasp the idea that God created the sun, put it in the sky to bring life to the earth, to be the source of heat and energy and food and everything that we need. Oh, but by the way, it'll probably kill you too.
It can also kill you. Yeah.
Right. It didn't resonate with me. Right. And so
yes, I totally get that. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I started really kind of diving in and researching. And so in the back of my mind, I kind of knew like, I think it's probably my diet because I pretty much eat like a trash can. Like I knew my diet was bad. And the
At least you
issue,
realize it though.
well, yeah, but the funny thing is, I realized as I'm sitting there chomping down a fast food burger, I mean, like it wasn't enough to stop me. So I went through this
Yeah.
huge like valley and mountain experience, right? Where I'm kind of this all or nothing personality where I was like, okay, I tell you what, if it's my diet, great, I'll stop eating. So I would like go on like a 6-day fast where I like wouldn't eat for 6 days because I'm like, well, if that's the problem, then let's nip it in the bud, right? So, but then the funny thing is, the irony is, after the 6 days, I was like, okay,
Pig out.
I'm done. Let's go to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? So yeah,
It's like a question of balance. I remember somebody in my family, I'm trying to remember, but they're like, you eat the big giant sundae at Dairy Queen, the peanut butter parfait or whatever,
right.
and then you have a Diet Coke with it, to balance it out.
Exactly
it's
right.
all a question of balance. Both of those things will kill you. By the way, don't call that balance. Come on.
No, absolutely not.
But,
but I did, and the funny thing is in my very feeble efforts, if you will, to try to curb this with diet, instead of like figuring out what is the best diet to eat, like I was doing these crazy things. But it was interesting because the symptoms that I would experience they would definitely lessen during those times. So like,
Okay.
the symptoms I had were things like itching, inflammation, bleeding. Like at night, there would be blood on my pillow.
Wow.
Like,
Okay.
and that's how I knew these
Yeah.
things are getting really bad. Right. But whenever I would go on those fasts, all of that would stop. Like the spot wouldn't go away, but it's like the sensitivity and the inflammation and all of the ugly part of it would sort of like curb. And so I knew, at least from that experiment, if you will, I knew there's something to the diet. Like
Yeah.
somehow I'm fueling this, but I
Yeah.
wasn't resolved enough to say I'm going to be healthy. I was just kind of like, well, I tried, So fast forward, it gets us to the time of the surgery, right? And so I had the eyebrow surgery, and for the most part that was successful. But then I went in to do the surgery behind the ear, and it was much more extensive. So I ended up going back, from surgery to waiting room, surgery to waiting room. I think I went like 7 or 9 times. I mean, it was like intense. And you get to a point where you're like, I think they're going to dig my brains out, like, because
Take
they're
the
just
whole ear,
cutting.
guys. Just
Well,
Yeah.
here, honestly, the doctor told
Yeah.
me, he was like, I thought about taking your entire ear off, and that's what I planned on doing. He said, but you were so young, I wanted to try to salvage it. And I'm like, thank you.
Right.
But yeah, so then I had to, after that, he couldn't repair it in office. So I had to go to a reconstructive surgeon. So I went to a reconstructive surgeon the next day, and they had to do a skin graft off of my hip area. And do that. So a week later, went back in for the results for him to check it out, and 25% of it survived, 75% of it failed. So then I had to go do another one. And by this time, we're talking in 2 months, I've had 4 surgeries now. And I am someone up until that point who had never even stayed a moment in a hospital. Like I'd never had a problem. And so this was like super, super traumatizing.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because as I was prepping for some of the surgeries with the Mohs surgeon, the physician's assistant was in there, and it was just she and I, and we were chatting, and she was like a very, very dark skinned woman. I want to say she was maybe from like Nigeria, Kenya, something like that. I mean, she was like African, if you will.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and I was just kind of feeling the waters, and I was like, I don't really think my skin cancer is because of sunburns. And she like looked at me like, what do you mean? And I go, I think it's actually probably my diet. And she like literally like looked around the room, and she was like, don't tell anybody, but you're right. She's like, because I am a Black woman and I have melanoma on the top of my foot. She was like, I don't even know what a sunburn is. I've never been sunburned. She was like, and somehow there's melanoma on my foot. She goes, and I've been studying. And she goes, I think God is showing me that our diets are what's causing this. And for me, that was just like this huge confirmation, right?
Yeah.
But, you still go like, okay, but what does that mean? Right.
Right.
So I was in that second surgery, again, having the reconstructive surgery. And as I was there, I was prepping to get under anesthesia, because thankfully they put me out for that. And I was just like in that really contemplative state, and I was just in prayer, and I'm like, I was really at a desperate point, and I'm like, okay, God, if you'll just tell me what caused this, I will make a change. Like finally in my heart, I had the resolve. I'm like, okay, what is the issue here? And it was like immediately I knew God spoke to me, and he said 3 words. 3 words, not 2, 3. It's your diet. And I knew in that moment, everything I had studied, every conversation I had, it all just sunk in. And it was like, okay, you have to change. And so I had done enough research to know that cancer thrives in an acidic environment, and it cannot live in an alkaline environment. And for me, what that meant when I got up out of that operating room was that I was going to create an alkaline environment for myself. I was not going to eat any processed sugars, and I was going to make sure I stayed as far away from the food that I had been eating, because it's what caused my problem. And I was going to embrace the food that I had never eaten. So I became 100% plant-based in that moment.
Wow.
And you could say that's really radical. And for me, like I'm a Southern boy from Texas. We eat, steak and
That is radical then.
yeah. I mean, that was me. That was my whole life growing up. And it was like something triggered in me, and I certainly, trauma can do this.
Yeah.
Suddenly I had an association for me personally with all animal products. It was like poison to me. It was like death. And I am not, now that I have studied and I'm a nutritionist, I understand for some people that is good. Not everyone needs to be on the same diet. Like all of our bodies are different, right? But for me, I knew what it meant. And I knew what I had to change. And so it was really my step of faith to say, I'm going to change the very core of who I am, meaning down to a cellular level. Like I am going to literally change what I eat because I am what I am. And that's what I began to do. And so there was a learning curve. At first it's like, okay, I guess I'll go buy some vegan chicken nuggets, like what do I eat? Because that's what I'm used to eating, And then
I can't help but think that would go backwards in what you're trying to do, though. Those probably have so much processed stuff in them that
sure, absolutely. But you live and learn, right? What was funny was I didn't just eat the processed food. Because I love to cook. And so I would get in there and whip up some pasta and this and that, and we were trying different things. And, a lot of it was convenience factor, but started I did start eating a lot of things from a box, but real quickly found out that doesn't make me feel very good. So I quickly got rid of all processed food and then went to a whole food plant-based diet to where everything was actually food. And that's when things really started to change. So, after my surgeries, I was pretty much like, I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything for several months because there was a big recovery going on.
Right.
And I think within the first 2 to 3 months of me going plant-based, I lost 60 pounds. And that was with no exercise. That was just me eating plants. And the funny thing was I didn't count calories. I didn't measure anything. I just ate everything I wanted to. I just made sure that what I ate was good for my body. And, that's one of the things that I think is so fascinating that I've learned is you can eat whatever you want as long as whatever you want is good for you.
Yeah, it's true. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't just eat whatever you want and expect to live to 150. So I mean, there's a caveat there for sure, but
absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know we are going to dive into some really cool stuff because you have found solutions that other people have not found yet. And so but right now we're going to take just a short break and we're going to go to a commercial and make some of the sponsors happy. And we're going to come back in a couple of minutes and dive into more of Chris's story. And by the way, if anybody has questions about what he's talking about, and like, if this is like blowing your mind, which it should be, by the way, reach out. I will have a QR code up during the second segment. And for the rest of the show, it'll have a QR code with his info. So you can reach out to Chris and ask any questions you want or comment on the show on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, and say, hey, Chris, I've got a question. Let's talk. But for now, we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
In a world where office workers typically receive 130 daily emails and have an 8-second attention span, CoreCentrica, with her 4 decades of international marketing experience, has partnered with the Learning Code Institute and their 30 years of neuroscientific research. Together, we are crafting unique messaging strategies that resonate, connect, and ultimately convert our target audiences. CoreCentrica, where award-winning creativity and disruptive neuroscience come together. Scan this code now, or call and click, and let us show you how CoreCentrica's partnership with the Learning Code Institute is influencing how businesses connect with their audience, foster engagement, and achieve conversions.
Hey there. You know, every time someone comes into your business or website and uses their card to pay, a percentage of that gets folded back into the system. But it can go to Hydro with Hope instead. If you'd like your business to support us rather than feed back into the system, scan the QR code and we'll show you how to do that while saving your business money.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.
Hey, everybody. Before we bring Chris back and hear more of his awesome story, I want to talk to you about Invisible Condition University. This is something that our family wished we would have had 10 years ago. Honestly, I have been through 4 brain surgeries and 2 other surgeries that were related to those in the last 10 years. And this would have been a godsend. Every time I had surgery, my wife and family were, mostly left on their own. Without anybody to help them. Because once you leave the hospital, they don't like have a hotline or anything you can call. So that's why my wife, Catherine, and I created ICU. We wanted to provide a place where other people like us, maybe like you and your family, would find a community that listens, that actually cares and walks with you no matter what you're going through. We meet on Zoom twice a month, first and third Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Don't worry if you can't make the live call. We always record them, and they're in the a spot where you can go back and listen. It's a safe place for patients and caregivers and parents and grandparents and anybody that's involved in your care to come, ask questions, vent frustrations, find the information that maybe wasn't provided by your medical practitioner. To join our growing community, please just go to invisibleconditionuniversity.com, scan the QR code, and that'll have all the information you need. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. It's going to be great. We'll see you soon there. And let's bring Chris back up here and hit the ground running here. Man, I mean, you're throwing out some truth bombs that I think people aren't really usually familiar with, like. And I'm so excited that you got that confirmation from the person that you were in the hospital with there, because that, like, I bet she was looking around going, okay, don't tell anybody,
Right?
It was gonna disrupt the whole deal. But
Exactly.
you're right. So
No, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty eye-opening, which, I guess as a quick little, throw this in here. That's really why I started my new podcast called Healing Conspiracy, because I think there are so many people who have so many questions and the answers we're getting don't make sense. And it's not about like, oh, let's make up all this stuff or let's attack Western medicine. It's not about that, but it's about like people are struggling. Like health in general in America right now is becoming a crisis. Like they have projected that there will be over 2 million new cases of cancer diagnosed this year alone.
Wow.
They're expecting over 2 million. I mean, that's unfathomable. That's huge.
Well, and what I've learned over the years, and from other guests that have been on the show, and from just my own knowledge of soaking this up over the last few years, is there has to be some sort of, doctors like diagnoses. If they can't put a diagnosis on it, they don't know what to do.
Right.
And so there are so many conditions that that kind of, like, there's a good half a dozen running through in my head right now that have very similar very similar symptoms.
Yeah.
But it's hard to pinpoint which one it is, so they just kind of throw one on there, and because number one, they don't have enough time to dive into it, and because they're limited, by the medical system, by
Right.
that they can't spend a ton of time, and so they throw a diagnosis on there and say, let's try this.
Yeah.
And so that's where people, I think, if I'm not, tell me if I'm right here, if you agree with this statement, but that's where why a lot of people are going to the alternative world right now, which is, honestly, it wasn't the alternative world up until about 100 years ago, until this medical system came in and said,
You're
We
exactly
got
right.
this. Don't worry.
This alternative health was the way that we did health
For thousands of years.
right,
Yes.
until the advent of, honestly, the
Pharmaceutical world.
pharmaceutical and how they realized that petroleum was a way to make money. And
Right.
every pharmaceutical is based in petroleum. There's a
Yep.
reason.
Yeah. And
So
boy, and when I can't help but wonder why that's not healthy for you. I don't know why that people are having so many problems with all these
well,
vaccines, right?
I mean, and like I said a minute ago, I mean, here's the thing: no disease can thrive in an alkaline environment.
Yeah.
Okay, all pharmaceutical drugs give your body an acidic environment.
Yes.
So it's kind of like it's the same thing. To know if you have cancer, you have to take a PET scan, but PET scans give you cancer.
All right. It's not
is
funny.
all
It's
crazy.
just it's bang your head against the wall funny is what it is. It's not
Yeah.
haha funny. It's like you got to be freaking kidding me funny.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, so that's my motivation. That's what I'm trying to do, is because there are people
Yeah.
looking for answers, and I don't have all the answers,
No.
but I at least have a whole lot of questions. And I think
But
that's the place to start. Like, if you
it's a
have
really
some
good place.
questions, that's some power.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I did whenever I went, and I guess let me kind of wrap up my story real quickly, so we can get into everything you want to get into, but just so that you know
go
where I'm
ahead.
coming from. So after that, I changed my diet, great, lost some weight, things were great, was on the road to recovery. And then about 2 years later, in 21, I started to have some irritation, some pain in my neck. And I thought, maybe I've pulled a muscle or something, went to chiropractors, did all kinds of things, but it wasn't going away. And so finally went to an ENT who said, I definitely feel something, some inflammation, some swelling. He goes, but I can't tell. He's like, we have to take a biopsy. That's the only way I'll know. So begrudgingly, I took a biopsy. And so long story short, after the surgery, now they didn't tell me this, but it's not rocket science. After the surgery, the cancer spread internally. And so then I had no idea. Okay. So here I am going, thinking everything's great. And then 2 years down the road, I'm given a diagnosis that I'm in stage 4 metastatic basaloid carcinoma, which is the absolute rarest form of skin cancer on the planet. It only happens in 3% of people that have skin cancer, but it is just that. It is when the basal cells travel internally to different locations in your body and begin to form tumors. So that's currently where I stand. I still am living in that right now. But it has been a journey, because I started that in 21, and, here we are in almost at the end of 24, but I've seen tremendous progress. And, my thing is, I didn't get cancer in a day, and I can't expect it to be gone in a day, although I would like it to be. And I do believe that it could be. Nothing's impossible with God, but sometimes we have to be patient, and we have to let our faith build. And so that being said, I had gone to all the conventional standard care. I went and had all the tests done at the cancer center, and that's how we found all this stuff out. And with every one of those oncologists and every one of those specialists that I talked to, I was really adamant about making sure that I had an understanding, because, I didn't want to just assume I was right. I didn't want to be arrogant. I'm not anti-Western medicine. I'm not against doctors. I don't think that they're stupid, but I definitely think there are lots of factors in play, and they don't necessarily have all the answers. And so I'm looking at them as a resource to make so that I can make the best decision about my health.
Yes.
Okay. And so I would go to each one of them and I would say, I need you to listen to me. I need you to listen to what I understand is happening in my body, and I need you to correct me if I'm wrong. And I would say to them, this was like my script. I would say, the issue is not that I have cancer, because you do too. There are cancer cells in your body, but your immune system recognizes them and it's destroying them, and mine does not. So my issue is my immune system. Am I correct? And every one of those oncologists, every specialist, every single person I talked to, they said, yes, you actually are exactly right. That is correct. And I said, so the problem is not cancer. The problem is my immune system. So what are you going to do to fix my immune system? And the answer I was given by all of them was this: that is more Eastern medicine. We do Western medicine, where our research shows that chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery have the best results. So that's what we do. We do not offer anything else.
Yeah.
Now, the key word in that was our research, the research from American medical journals. But there is so much more research from people all around the world. And cancer is not as huge of an epidemic as it is anywhere in America, and then arguably some of the other Western nations, but it's just interesting. So I knew at that point I had to start looking for solutions, because I wasn't interested as much in getting rid of cancer as I was in being healthy.
Yes.
And that was where I started this journey. And so that's when I dove into alternative therapies and started researching and found out that, hey, I can go just across the border to Mexico, and there are people there that all they do is treat the immune system. Let's go try it, And so that's kind of how my journey evolved. And that's, kind of why, in addition to wanting to help people to get questions answered, like I said, I also started the podcast, Healing Conspiracy, because I want people to know the questions to be asking.
Yes. Well, and the plant adventure as well. I mean, that's
right.
If people wanted to know more, that's where they could go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
plantadventure.com, scan the QR code. What are they going to find there?
So at theplantadventure.com, it's a little bit about me, and then it really gives you some really simple call to actions for what might interest you and get you more information. Okay. Whether that is you want to work with me, on one-on-one coaching, and I can take you through from a nutritional standpoint, and we can identify some issues and then say, like, here's a diet that would really help you. Let's experiment. Let's see what happens. All the way to, I really advocate for, although I do believe a plant-based diet is very powerful, I don't think it is the only answer or the answer, because like I said before, people are different. Yes. But I do believe that no one is going to not receive benefit from plants. So getting more fruits and vegetables in our diets and fiber is key to health and longevity. So, another thing that I really love is whole food powders. I think that they're powerful because we cannot eat enough fruit and vegetables, and the fruit and vegetables that we're eating tend to be so low quality because of, monocropping and all these other things that they do in commercial farming that, it would take us 50 apples to get the nutrition of an apple from 100 years ago, Right. And so whenever we can get whole food powders, it's that boost to help us bridge the gap where we're not getting what we need. So I've seen tremendous benefits. So I have some information about that, and of course, linked to the podcast and Healing Conspiracy. And, really it's just about getting people information and getting that in their hands and building that community of people and support that, that really are looking for answers.
I love that. Yeah. Cause there's so many people looking for answers, and they're, in my humble opinion, I'm no expert, and I don't know it all, but a lot of people are going to sources that aren't helping them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to name them. I can think of a couple that I could off the top of my head, but I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to piss anybody off too bad, but,
sure.
but there are some people that have sources that are hurting them, not helping them. And it's heartbreaking because there are so many things out there, and it's because traditional Western medicine and big pharma have bigger advertising budgets than, what we've been doing for thousands of years before they came to town. Yeah. So, and so that is what's saturating our society, and that's what's not necessarily helping.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
I mean, I wouldn't be everyone for good doctors and surgeons, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus necessarily, but I also wouldn't be here without the good, with good natural remedies and things. I say it all the time that the traditional Western medicine and surgeons and brain surgeons and anesthesiologists and nurses and medical saved my life, kept me alive. But the alternative world of all that natural practitioners gave me my life back.
Yeah.
So because if I hadn't found one in 2014 after a couple of brain surgeries I had back then, I'd still be on the couch in the other room there, writhing with migraines.
Yeah.
So it's got to be both,
Yeah.
So it's and I can't wait to hear. Your podcast sounds fascinating. So everybody, you go to hit this QR code, guys, because that's going to be a really cool podcast. I can't wait to check it out. So
Yeah.
we're going to go to one last break. And then we got a little bit left of the show, and we're going to talk about, one of my favorite subjects to talk about is hope. And if you honestly, in this world or any other world, if you don't have hope in your daily life, then you're kind of dead in the water already. So we're gonna talk about hope. But stick around, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Chris in just a couple minutes.
Tired of losing cell service in dead zones? Concerned about connectivity in emergencies? There is now an answer. Introducing the Love Pod. The world's first affordable encrypted global internet Wi-Fi hotspot connects with multiple service carrier networks and is satellite assisted when no service carrier networks are available. So it works virtually anytime, anywhere. Connect up to 9 devices, like our cell phone, laptop, desktop, TV, security cam, and more. Stream, chat, text, download, and make phone calls, all with no roaming fees. With mesh capability, the Love Pods will grow in strength and speed with each new pod activated to create a private terrestrial-based intranet called Love Global Network. The Love Pods are dual blockchain encrypted with Love's proprietary 2048-bit cube chain encryption, giving you the ultimate protection in data privacy and security against digital attacks and hacks to your devices. You are no longer tracked, and your data is never sold. Get the Love Pod, your private, encrypted, portable global internet Wi-Fi hotspot, and stay safe and stay connected.
Hi, I'm Jake, co-founder and CEO of One Hope. My friends and I started this company in 2007 out of the back of this truck on a mission to enrich people's lives through wine. Today, we've grown into a state-of-the-art Napa Valley winery that proudly houses a portfolio of award-winning wines which have touched lives through over 40,000 nonprofits at home and around the globe. And it's happening every day. Being rooted in local communities and contributing to initiatives that uplift neighborhoods, celebrate cultures, and promote community. It's what got us here. You see, through every bottle sold, your purchase can make a direct impact on the causes you care about. One Hope's cause of choice has given back over $10 million and counting.
Hi, Eva Baca-Kearns here, and I am the host of One Punch Superstars, where we meet real people who chose to fight for their hopes and their dreams and become the champions of their destiny. You can find us on Achieve TV every Tuesday and Wednesday at noon Mountain Standard Time, right here on E360 TV.
All right, everybody, we are back. And I mentioned before we went to the break that that hope is kind of a big deal around here, and it is, and it honestly, I mean, Chris, I love that you are a Jesus follower, and you're a we are in this house too. We believe the Bible is the truth, and we don't, so it makes me even more excited about what you're doing because yeah, we didn't read in the Bible about somebody going to the doctor and getting a pill. It was, let's see how we can do this God's way, see how we can do this naturally,
Yeah.
And so I love that that's the approach you're taking. And so with that in mind, I mean, with in the days that are crazy, in the days that are hard, and those days that you're like in surgery or having a rough day, how do you still maintain hope?
Yeah, I love that. There was a lot of time for me where that was really easy.
Yeah.
I went about 2 years of my diagnosis it was completely asymptomatic. It was like I would forget I even had cancer. Wouldn't even think about it. And this past year, because I had taken some time off of work, took a sabbatical to try to get my health under control. I was a teacher, and that's a stressful job. So, I had missed so much school doing all the therapies and stuff. I thought, let me just take a year off. So this past year I went back and was teaching, and it was extremely high stress. And God really took that time to show me how stress was affecting me, because I had no idea stress was affecting me. No idea. So it started as like nutrition. And then I thought, okay, I fixed my nutrition, I'm good. And it was like, no, this is multifaceted. Like, you're not where you need to be, And so then I started to realize that stress was a major contributor to my systems failing. And I had to learn that the hard way. And I started to really develop a lot of nerve pain and inflammation and things like that. And this past year, I have been through a lot of physical issues. Nothing that was like I had to be hospitalized or anything like that, but definitely things that I can't function today. Like I just have to sit in the chair, that kind of thing. And so you're right. There have been some days that are pretty abysmal, and for me, I don't know how anyone could get through a time like that without faith in God. It just, that is my only source. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me any other way. Like I cannot positive think myself through that. When you're in pain, you can think as positively as you want, but it doesn't change your thought. It doesn't change the pain, and in which I'm all for positive thinking, but
sure.
And recently I've really been diving into scripture and really studying and trying to get some clarity on like, what is this journey I'm on, because I'll be honest, it is oftentimes an uncomfortable journey, but I am now doing things like this, for example, that I would have never done. And I would not have this opportunity if it weren't for the negative things that have happened. And, there's a scripture that says that God causes all things to work for good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes. And so I have to realize that even though it may not be good in the moment, God has this ability to make it good. And it always supersedes our understanding. It doesn't even make sense how it works, but it does. And so I started thinking about this whole thing. We get all these examples in the Bible of people who came to Jesus with great faith and they were healed. Right. And, you've got the woman with the issue of the blood, and she reached out and touched the hem of Jesus's garment and was healed. And then you've got, the leper that came to him and he was instantly healed. And then like, there's just so many miracles that took place. You think of the centurion, right? Who sent his servants and said, my servant's at home, he's dying. And then, Jesus is like, well, I'll come heal him. And he's like, no, all you have to do is say the word and he'll be healed. And Jesus said, this is the most faith I've ever seen, like in all of Jerusalem. And this wasn't even a Jew that said this. This was a Gentile. Right. So, you see all this, but something struck me the other day is that you don't see their journey. All you do is see the moment that their faith was completed. See, there is a completion of faith. But sometimes we think that because we haven't completed the faith that we're not in faith. But every one of those people had a journey of faith. And then I thought, wow, this is incredible. Like, when was Jesus's faith completed? It was completed not when he died on the cross. It was completed when he rose again. He had to have enough faith in his Father that he could die and be resurrected. And that was so powerful to me to realize, like, I am on this journey. And right now I haven't seen my faith, quote unquote, completed, but that doesn't negate my journey. And I think for me, that's kind of the essence of what you're talking about, that hope. I can now go day to day knowing I am walking this out and I can truly enjoy the journey. Like, my brand, The Plant Adventure, my tagline is eat plants, enjoy the journey. Right. Nice. And there's a reason for that, because I am on this crazy adventure, this crazy journey. And if you don't enjoy it, it'll consume you. And I don't want to be the journey. I want to see what's on the other side, And so I don't know. I hope that speaks maybe to what you're asking.
Totally. Yeah. No, it's awesome. I love that answer. It's a great answer. It's true. Yeah, because and also I think part of what I heard in there, correct me if I'm wrong, is it doesn't matter if it's complete yet or not. You can still have faith, and you can still act on that faith, and still depend on Jesus, and still ask God for things in faith. Like, just be, if Jesus, like, if with your example, if Jesus's faith wasn't totally complete until he was resurrected after the crucifixion, then how was he able to do all the stuff he was able to do leading up to that? Well, it was because he had faith, and he was and so, yeah, you just because there's some perfectionists out there that I think heard that and went, well, okay, well then I'm useless right now because it's not complete yet. No.
Well, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of what Jesus did, is it's complete in him.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can walk in it now. But I think that it's important to embrace that we're going to have our trials and our struggles. And really what I think God's doing in all of that, and I heard somebody say this week, and it really stuck with me, is he's really just showing us he's showing us our faith. He already knows our faith,
right?
But we don't. We think we do.
We have really short memories.
Yeah, but it's funny because suddenly when I'm in a whole lot of pain, I'm starting to see how quick I am to mumble and complain and groan,
Right.
And so, I just think that that's really powerful to keep that perspective.
Exactly. I love that. That's fantastic. So, all right, everybody, I've got that QR code on there. So seriously, we got about 3 minutes left. So if you want to scan, do it now, because we got about 3 minutes to go. But what in the last 2 or 3 minutes, what would you like to leave with our audience at the end of the show here?
Yeah, I thank you for that. So, really it's about remembering that sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. And if you get a diagnosis, or you have a loved one who's gotten a diagnosis, that is not a death sentence. A diagnosis is not a death sentence. And to me, it's important that we begin to dive in and look for the root of it, for that root cause. And oftentimes it could be a physical root, like nutrition. Oftentimes it could be an emotional root, like stress. And then, something we haven't even really discussed, it's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. It could be a spiritual root. Maybe it's unforgiveness. Maybe, all these different things, all of these things can contribute to our bodies. That's one of the things that was so powerful about ancient medicine, is they didn't look at conditions. They looked at people.
Yeah.
And Western medicine looks at conditions. You come in, they don't even get to know you. They don't care about your diet. They don't care about your lifestyle. They don't even ask you what you do for a living. They just check all this and they say, your blood work says this is what you are. Don't become that condition. Don't become the diagnosis, because you are more than a diagnosis. And the diagnosis is simply a warning sign. And it's telling you something's out of balance, and it's about getting ourselves back to that balance. And I think we have to have all three in balance. You have to have the physical part in balance. The nutrition is key, exercise, body movement, all these things. But then on top of it, it has to be the soul, it has to be the emotions, and it has to be spiritual. If those three things are not in balance, you're going to have a breakdown somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you have to have, and I mean, to your point from earlier, I don't know how people do it outside of Jesus. Honestly, I really don't. I mean, I know a lot of people that are spiritual.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. And I applaud you for pursuing something, but in my personal experience, I don't know what I would do without that assurance, so that's a big deal. And knowing that he's got all this under control, he's already seen the last page of their book, of Chris's life and of my life and of everybody's life, and he knows what's going on. So, it's awesome. But hey, Chris, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. We really should do this again. This is good stuff. We didn't cover nearly enough. So, I'm just going to throw it out there, everybody. You might see him again. He might be on the show again. You never know. We'll see what we can do. Until then, man, thank you so much for being here and for everything, your story and everything. Just thank you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. And like I said, if I can be a support and encouragement and resource, that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Here we go. we have just a little bit of time left. Our next show will be on September 17th. And actually, believe it or not, that's going to be my wife, Catherine, and I. We are going to host the show that day. And we're going to be talking about Invisible Condition University, which we kind of talked about a little bit before. And it's we're going to be talking about all of this and what we're doing and how people are benefiting and how you can be a part of it. So we're going to be doing that on September 17th. And so join us. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see you there. Thank you for watching. If you have been watching for a while, it's awesome. Thank you so much. Tell your friends. And for those of you who maybe this is your first episode, thank you for being here. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or E360 TV and you're on your phone or in your living room, thank you. Join us September 17th for the next show. And until then, have an amazing day, and we will see you next time.